Good morning. My name is K.Ramos. I'm the director of the neuroethics program at the National Institute of Neurological Disorders and Stroke here at the NIH. As you dive into this second workshop on non-invasive neuroimaging technologies, looking towards transformative ways to image the brain with incredible sensitivity and specificity, I'd like to offer some thoughts on ethical and societal considerations. Next slide, please. I use the term neuroethics to refer to the field that studies the implications of neuroscience for human self-understanding, ethics, and policy. Neuroethics questions are wide-ranging and they depend on the progress of science. You may be thinking, okay, ethics, we have IRBs and IACUCs, right? And to that I say, yes, of course, there is an existing robust framework for the oversight and regulation of biomedical research. But nevertheless, science evolves, as do our shared culture and norms. And existing ethical frameworks may need to be contextually specified and interpreted. And I want to emphasize this, they must evolve alongside the science. So what kinds of neuroethics questions might be relevant here? Some examples could include, do novel neurotechnologies present new threats to privacy? If so, how should we address these issues? As we learn more about the neural bases of human behavior, how can we study and report on group level findings in a way that doesn't reinforce cultural stereotypes? And how do we define normal in the context of health and disease, but also in the context of human variation and individual identity? Next slide, please. So in the next few minutes, I will go into a bit more detail on these key points, but let me give you the bottom line up front. The goal here is to support a culture of ethical inquiry. We really want to empower our researchers to explore your own curiosity about the ethical and societal implications of your work and to help maximize the positive impact of this research. Next slide. So I just want to give you a brief primer on neuroethics. You can think of it as the study of ethical issues raised by our evolving understanding of the brain and our increasing capacity to monitor and influence it. The goal of neuroethics is not to police or hinder neuroscience advancements, but rather to help researchers and other stakeholders better navigate the difficult questions that this research may pose to society and to better communicate nuanced findings to the public. Neuroethics can help align research and research findings with societal values. And one of the goals of the BRAIN Initiative is to ensure that ethics is considered in a serious and sustained manner and that all funded research adheres to the highest ethical standards. As part of these efforts, the initiative includes a neuroethics working group, which helps identify and navigate neuroethics challenges in the BRAIN Initiative portfolio. In 2018, we published 8 neuroethics guiding principles for the NIH BRAIN Initiative, which are shown on the right of the screen there. And you can think of these as points to consider as you design, conduct, analyze, and interpret your research. Recall that I mentioned that ethical frameworks may need to be contextually specified and interpreted. With that in mind, I want to go into a little detail on ethical considerations relevant to non-invasive neuroimaging, and I'm breaking these down into 2 categories. One is considerations for conducting this research ethically, and 2, considerations around implications of the research and new neuroimaging technologies for individuals, groups, and society. Next slide, please. So the first bucket, conducting research ethically. I have 4 main points here. The first is around diversity of designers. We must ensure that underrepresented groups are included in science. Data indicate that teams with diverse perspectives tend to be more productive and produce higher quality science. And having a broad range of perspectives can help ensure that innovative solutions are useful to a broad range of communities. The NIH BRAIN Initiative has multiple funding mechanisms to support increasing the diversity of designers. Second is the diversity of research participants and engagement. This is really about who is included in our science. So in neuroimaging studies, certain populations, including people with developmental disabilities or cognitive impairments, may face additional challenges to participating in neuroimaging research. Neuroimaging devices may be more accurate for people with certain physical features than with others. As a parallel example, EEG systems do not work as well for coarse and curly hair common among Black people. Additionally, some neuroimaging devices are easier than others to bring to low resource settings. And these topics were discussed at last year's NIH virtual workshop on addressing neuroimaging challenges across populations and settings, which you can find information about online. We don't have a lot of data on the diversity of participants in neuroscience research, but one piece of data that was published in 2019 showed that individuals of African ancestry make up less than 5% of people participating in research studies on brain disorders. Next point here is patient engagement. So for research that is disease relevant, the incorporation of patients throughout the research process, from picking a research question to communicating findings, can help prioritize questions that matter to people living with illness and ensure that patients are informed about relevant research findings. Fourth point, privacy and neural data. There is a need to ensure privacy of any biomedical data, but given the sensitivity of the brain and its role in personal identity, is particularly important to ensure that this data is protected. And it may be useful to consider the concept of privacy by design, which is a framework based on proactively embedding privacy into the design and operation of IT systems, networked infrastructure, and business practices. And we can consider a similar privacy by design approach for developing transformative non-invasive neuroimaging technologies. Next slide. Thank you. So the second category of ethical considerations relevant to non-invasive neuroimaging has to do with, as I said before, implications of the research, new tools and technologies for individuals, groups, and society. And I have 4 points here as well. The first one, again, is about privacy, although what I'm talking about here is the idea that as neuroimaging technologies improve, the data collected may be more sensitive. And these data also may be combined with other types of data, such as behavioral or wearable data, to give a fuller picture of brain function. These changes should be anticipated, and ethical and societal implications should be mitigated to the extent possible. This is really about trying to be forward-thinking as you design and develop these new tools and technologies. How can you work to make them future-proof? Second point is about biomarkers. So as we continue to identify biomarkers for a variety of neurological and mental health disorders, the implications of these biomarkers should also be systematically studied. For example, in which populations are biomarkers effective? In which populations are they less effective? How do biomarkers affect patients' perceptions of their conditions? And how do biomarkers affect diagnosis and treatment of illness? Third point is around justice considerations. So it's really important to work to ensure that technologies are widely disseminated, that the benefits of research are equitably shared. Researchers should also be aware of and work to minimize the risk of stigma or disadvantage for different groups. And this ties back to the question I raised at the beginning of my talk: how can we study and report on group level findings in a way that doesn't reinforce cultural stereotypes? Fourth point here is about potential future non-biomedical applications of novel non-invasive neuroimaging technologies. I really believe that ethics should be grounded in the science. Hyperbole, whether in ethics or science, is not very productive. And while it is essential to anticipate and mitigate potential future ethical and societal challenges, I think it's also really important that these considerations be grounded in reality and that the challenges be prioritized in some way. So for example, there has been much discussion in the popular press about mind reading via neuroimaging. And I hope that you've noticed that I don't have mind reading on my list of ethical considerations. While it may one day be a possibility, there are much more practical and real ethical concerns that matter right now, and that you are in a position to shape, because the outcomes in this field of research will be guided by many decisions that you make day to day on how to design, conduct, and interpret your research. Next slide, please. So I hope I've given you some food for thought on neuroethics questions that might be relevant to your work. So now what? I hope you have a better understanding of the breadth of these questions that can emerge as we learn more about the brain. And I also offer that neuroethics can help navigate these questions in a sensitive, systematic, and ideally proactive way. Neuroethicists can help to scan the horizon and assist in anticipating and navigating ethical concerns, and they can also help inform how neuroscience research is designed, conducted, interpreted, and applied. In fact, the NIH Brain Initiative supports both the integration of neuroethics into neuroscience as well as independent neuroethics research. So for example, Francis Shen has been working with Mike Garwood at the University of Minnesota, first via an administrative supplement and now via a full neuroethics grant. And the aim of this work is to conduct empirical research and generate evidence-based recommendations for the ethical conduct of population research using highly portable, cloud-enabled MRI in new and diverse populations in field settings. This is a very proactive approach as we consider a future in which non-invasive neuroimaging is much more portable and pervasive. And Shen and team will dig into areas including informed consent, data privacy, establishing local capacity to interpret and communicate neuroimaging data, potential bias of interpretive algorithms in diverse populations, and responding to participant requests for access to their data. Again, this is neuroethics research that is funded by the NIH Brain Initiative, and I've listed here a few ways in which we are looking to support neuroethics research and training. Next slide, please. So in closing, the neuroethics lessons learned over the past 6 years that we've been working on this in the Brain Initiative include: one, I think we really need a frame shift from thinking of ethics as compliance to promoting a culture of ethical inquiry. Two, integrating neuroethics with neuroscience research can be highly effective. And from my perspective, the ultimate benefit to neuroscience and to society is doing better science. And we really want to empower people to solve these pressing issues in neuroscience together. Thank you very much. I've provided my email address, and please feel free to contact me at any time.